Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Paul from Prior Witness, and today I'm going to talk to you about how to incorporate the rest of your rig with a multi-effects pedal. And here I have the MX5 from Headrush. Fantastic multi-effects pedal, but what I'm about to walk you through, it really applies to any multi-effects pedal as long as you got an input, an output, and an effects loop. And that's it. And then if you stay tuned for the remainder of the video after I get through running you through the rig, for those of you specifically on the Headrush MX5, I'll walk you through my global settings to see how I set it up. So let's get going. So first and foremost, what you really need to do is understand how food groups work. And I kind of did this in a previous video. So if you want to check that out about specific to the Headrush, I go into that a little bit, but we'll dive into it a little bit right now. So in order to get a rig going, there's a few things that you need, right? You got to have some kind of dynamics, some kind of, maybe you got some pitch shifting going on, and maybe there's some overdrive or distortion, followed by an amp, and then some modulation, and then delay. That's kind of how it works. And so I'm going to take you through this layout right now. So for this particular example, what I've got is the multi-effects unit here acts as nothing more than an amp simulator and modulation. That's it. That's all it is. Before, there's going to be, as you can see here in front of you, there's a wah, there's a whammy, some overdrive, and then I've got my multi-effects unit, and then from there it's going into the delay pedal. So more in depth. So the guitar starts right here on my pedal board, and this is the wah unit. This is the crybaby. And then if you've got a wah, of course it's a wah, duh. If you've got a fuzz pedal, maybe even a univibe, you'll want that going before it even hits your wah pedal. So that's the very first thing you want coming in. So if you've got something like that, that's the very first thing you should have hitting your guitar signal. From there, if you've got a crybaby or a wah or something, go into a wah. Next, you can see going in from the wah is my whammy pedal. This is a pitch shifting device, fantastic pitch shifting pedal. It's a classic, right? If you listen to Rage Against the Machine or heck, even Pantera, I'm showing my age, I think. This is the pedal for you. I mean, that gets you all those sounds. The other thing I love about this pedal in particular is it's also got a shallow and a deep function, which gives you some interesting chorus options as well. Very neat device. There's harmony, pitch shifting, obviously the whammy feature itself. A very versatile unit, but that comes next after the wah pedal. And really, to be honest with you, if you wanted to put the whammy before the wah, if you haven't had these two pedals, great. Next, after the whammy, you'll want it going into some kind of dynamics as well. So if you had a compressor or something to that effect, that would actually be in between these two devices. As you can see, the cable's going from the whammy into my overdrive pedal here, my Maxon OD9. It's really nothing more than an Ibanez Tomb Screamer, really, at the end of the day. But yeah, this is my overdrive that comes next. But if you had something like a compressor, that would be the next thing. From the overdrive pedal, now it's going into my multi-effects unit. In front of you is the Headrush MX5, and that's where the signal is coming in from right there. So from the overdrive pedal into here. And really what we're doing in here is nothing more than amp simulation and a little bit of modulation. So if you understand how food groups go, again, your guitar goes from your guitar into something like a fuzz or a univibe, then followed by something like wah, whammy, pitch shifting, compression, and then your overdrives, then your distortion pedals, and then from there, if we're doing the multi-effects unit like how I am, and you're just using this for amp modeling purposes, that's what's all going on in here. Now, as you can see in front of you, you're like, well, wait a minute, there's more than just amp sims going on in here. And yes, you would be correct. So before it does anything with the amp sims, what I've got coming in here, as you can see, the in. So my guitar in is coming in, and the first thing that's hitting is this little drop tune thing. Now, for my personal reasons, I've sacrificed some tone just to be able to use this, mainly because most of the time, and I mean most of the time, whenever I kick on something like my overdrive pedal or my whammy pedal, anything like that, I'm using drop tune. Really, it's just for when I'm playing live, right, or practicing by myself, and I don't feel like changing guitars. That's the only reason why that pedal's even there. It's just an easy, lazy way. From there, I'm coming into a compressor, and the compressor is really linked with my clean amp within the Headrush MX5. So when I activate a clean tone, I automatically am activating 3 different pedals. I'm activating this compressor, followed by the clean amp, and then followed by a chorus pedal, some kind of modulation. That's what I typically do. And if I'm not using chorus, I'm using a flanger. If I'm not using flanger, I'm using a phaser, or maybe a univibe or something like that, all contained within this thing, including tremolo. That's what's going on in there. So that's taking care of everything in there. There is an effects loop. And how am I using the effects loop? That's the other interesting part of my personal rig and what I wanted to show you. And this applies again to any other multi-effects pedal. So if you have an effects loop, which most multi-effects pedals do these days, especially the higher end ones for sure, like your Line 6s, your, oh gosh, the synapses are not firing, like your fractals and your, oh gosh, I just got done looking at one. The Boss GT, that's another one. The Amplifier is another one. There's lots of them out there. Moore's got one. It seems like everybody and their grandmother has one these days. But they all usually come with an effects loop. And what you can do with that effects loop is take any pedal you want and slap them within the chain. Now for me, I do something a little bit different. I take my actual amplifier. It's a Mesa Boogie dual rectifier. And you see that on the screen now as I'm pivoting to that picture real quick. But coming back to the Headrush unit, what I'm doing is I'm taking from my effects loop and I'm going actually into my amplifier and using the distortion tones from that. In addition to that, I'm also mixing in this lovely guy over here. This is a Rev G3 pedal. Now, why am I showing you all this? Well, look, this is a preamp pedal. It's also a distortion pedal. You can use it both different ways. I can get into that in another video. But what I'm trying to tell you is the effects loop, the way you use it, you don't necessarily have to use it with just an effects pedal, like a distortion or a chorus or a, whatever, right? You can use it with anything. And in addition to that, you can also use your amp. And that's what's called the 4-cable method. So what's actually happening here is the effects send and the effects return are being utilized in such a way where one part is going into the input of the amp and the other part is coming from the effects send portion of the amp. And that's how that works. And it's also blending in with my Rev G3 pedal. So really, if you were to see how it would look, is I have from the input from my amplifier coming into the output of the Rev G3 pedal. And then from the Rev G3 pedal, it's going from the input over into, let's see what we got over here. This is real professional stuff we've got going on now, guys. Really high class stuff. What is that? The effects send. And then the effects return is going into the amp. So there you go. And then now I like using delay outside of my multi-effects unit. I don't use any of the delays or any of the reverbs within the unit. And typically how you want your rig to sound and be set up from a pedal standpoint is you typically want your modulation, stuff like chorus, like tremolo. You can have flanger and phaser and those kinds of things after the amp. I personally like to use them before the amp. That's why you see on this unit I have a flanger going in before any of the amps or my effects loop, because my effects loop is essentially another amplifier on this unit. And that's how that works. And then you also want your delays coming in after the amp. Well, since what's coming out of the Headrush, that's where this little guy comes in. This is the Wampler Metaverse pedal. This is a delay pedal. So think of this, when you're looking at this is a delay pedal. So this is like your MXR carbon copy. This is, this is your Boss, DD200. This is, all those things. Your flashback, the TC Electronics flashback. That's all this is. Think of that as this. This is your delay pedal. And that's going to be one of the last things in your chain. And then from there, I'm kind of glad I accidentally got this shot. What you see here, I did this on purpose. This is the very end of my pedal board. This is the very end of my chain. So I can do a few things here. I can have this go out directly to my mixing board. That's what this cable is, actually. And what this cable is goes into my effects return of my amplifier. So all of this is happening and going in either whichever way I want it to, either the effects return of my amplifier or into my mixing board, depending on what my usage is going to be. But that's how you can make all this stuff work. So just because you have a multi-effects unit doesn't necessarily mean you have to stick with just that unit. You can use all these other pedals with it, and just decide, these are the kind of things I'm not going to use in the multi-effects unit because I already got those pedals. So like for me and my multi-effects pedal, even though I have this expression pedal here, the only thing I ever really use it for is for an extra wah if I feel like I want to use it, or a volume pedal, which is what I usually use it for. And then everything else just comes before it. So the natural order of things, when in your rig, you always want your dynamics, your fuzzes, your overdrives coming before the amplifier. So then that's going into here, right? And then the multi-effects unit, in this example, is nothing more than an amp simulator and modulation simulator, which is amp, then the modulation. And then after the modulation, you got it coming from the Headrush unit into the delay. So think of this as delay and reverb. And then after that, it's going into your actual amplifier or into your mixing board or in front of a PA or whatever, right? So real quick, for those of you who actually have the Headrush MX5, let me show you what I'm doing in here. So let's zoom in here with this professional camera work going on courtesy of my hand and my phone, because what other way would we do this? So I'm going to click these three dots. I'm going to show you what's going on in here because I do things a little differently than how they tell you on the site. I just wanted to show you a few of these settings. I apologize. Man, that is dirty. Isn't that dirty? It's awesome. All that spit and grind. It's great. I hope it's giving you a great time. I hope you're eating while you're watching this. Makes it better. I apologize. So anyways, global settings right here. I want you to pay attention to the main out level and the effects returned level. I actually have mine set to line and rack, and the reason why I do that is for versatility reasons. You can always turn down this main part right here before you come into an amplifier. It's not going to hurt it. If I have the main out level on amp, I got to turn this sucker up all the way up to like 8 or 9 to get a good volume. Whereas if I leave it on line, I can keep this between 6 and 7 and it's okay. And plus my mixing board just reads it a heck of a lot better when I just keep it that way. So that's one reason. Effects return level, same thing. I have it going into my amplifier, and at the same time I'll have like another pedal coming in, which is the Rev G3 as you saw over there. And again, you can control the volume levels on those. So why not just have it be to the default louder volume and have it push a little bit and you're good to go. Now, I would caution you against doing that if you want to keep things super clean, right? So if you don't want any grit, if you don't want anything being pushed, then I would have these at amp and stomp levels because you don't want those pushed. So anyways, that was a mouthful in 13 minutes. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something by looking at my own rig and seeing how I hook everything up and see how I use everything with the multi-effects pedal. And with that, I hope you learned something. Have a great rest of your day. Take it easy. Rock on. And thanks for watching.